Hello, insiders. Welcome to this new episode of the EU Bubble Insider. Today, our guest is Andrianos Giannou, EU Affairs Director at EURACTIV. Andrianos, welcome to the show.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me.
It's a real pleasure to speak with you. What is the role of the EU Affairs Director at EURACTIV? Because EURACTIV is not a mystery to anyone who's been at least a little bit active in the EU bubble. But your role might sound a bit mysterious to some. So could you tell us a little bit more about what it is you actually do as the EU Affairs Director?
Sure, absolutely. And again, thanks for having me, and very good to be here. I mean, there are several elements to this role. First, it's about relationship building. In that sense, it is an external partnerships, external relations, and sales or business development role. And on top of that, and I believe this is the essence of it, I advise partners on how to best use media tools to achieve their advocacy campaign goals. Right. So it is about relationship building for the purposes of business development in that way. And then the next stage is building and goals and advising partners on how to best use the media tools that we offer to achieve what their aims are. There's also a EURACTIV specific element to my role. As you might know, there are 13 EURACTIV branding newsrooms across Europe, so 13 different languages, and I help coordinate sales and product development amongst those 13 entities.
So, what are your priorities in building relationships with who? I'm asking this because maybe this is a silly question, but it's interesting to hear how you approach building something where you represent a brand that is known by everyone.
Sure. I mean, we try to engage with as many I use the word stakeholders as possible, right? I mean, anyone who has a legitimate voice and they have something to say. This is someone we want to approach, and we're trying to approach. I mean, you might think essentially, especially when you hear business development, you might think that everybody is after the top 10 spenders in town. That is not necessarily it. What would have seen, that's our experience, is that the wider we cast a net, the better it is, and often that extends to places we haven't even thought of. There is a great range of actors who want to be vocal in this town, in the bubble, and that extends far beyond the obvious ones, right? We will always very often get requests from places very far away, and we often look into those places as well to build relationships. So we have to go, and we do go beyond what is self-evident, what is obvious. And again, that extends to a range of organizations. It's not only about industry, it's about the trade associations, it is about think tanks, it is about civil society. The three stakeholder groups essentially that have a role here in Brussels, that's policymakers or the governmental side, elected officials, appointed officials, states even, then industry in all forms. So the lobbyists, the consultants, but also company affiliated representatives, but also trade associations, and then civil society and think tanks, NGOs, all of them.
So part of
Does that
your
make sense?
yeah, absolutely. But if I get it right, part of your job is also doing PR for EURACTIV.
I mean, it is part of the job. Yeah, I mean, it's part of the role essentially. And I do represent EURACTIV in different fora, especially industry-related discussions. But I'm not the only one who does that, obviously, right? I mean, my colleagues at editorial, do that as well. Our comms director, the head of my department does the same. The CEO does the same. So there's no, let me put that way, there wouldn't be a single voice just because we are active in many different fields. So yeah, it's quite broad in that sense. But I do represent EURACTIV occasionally. Yeah.
So before you joined business, let's go a bit back and explore your past career. So before you joined business, you've been active in politics. You've been the president of the youth of the European People's Party. And here I have two questions. My first one, of course, is do you miss it? Do you miss being an active politician? And the second is, what have you learned back then that you find useful today in your work?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, very good question. Um, I do miss the people. That's for sure. I mean, I made friendships back then. I do miss the people. I don't quite miss the politics though. You might be surprised. It might come as a surprise to you, but the answer is no. Um, I mean, politics has been transformed into crisis management, and there are several dead ends, I think. And because of that, and maybe on top of that, it is increasingly politics is increasingly defined by the 4-year, 5-year electoral cycle rather than long-term goals, which makes the job, quite challenging. I'm obviously happy, very happy to see my former colleagues giving their best at it, and well done to them. It is not just a full-time job, right? I mean, it goes far beyond that. It's a lifestyle, it's a life choice, um, and I don't miss that. So I don't think that suits me. Now, coming to your second question, definitely it's a very valuable background, and valuable takeaways. I think that those will be two main takeaways that maybe I want to highlight. And obviously, those are not unique to me, right? Anyone who has some experience in electoral politics will be carrying those takeaways with them. I think the first is the understanding of what a campaign is. What does it mean to run a campaign? I mean, in politics, the full cycle of a campaign, I think, is defined by 4 stages. You listen, you create, you explain, and then you deliver. And I believe advocacy campaigns work very much in a similar way, right? So knowing what to look for, what is important, the understanding maybe that a campaign is dynamic, is not a static situation, right? It is evolving. There are risks, but also opportunities that this entails. I think having that experience, having developed some of the reflexes needed, is a skill that is useful, and anybody who's involved in electoral politics might want to take that skill with them. And a second, I think, key element is the understanding of grassroots. How grassroots action translates or impacts policy making and politics in general. Um, Essentially, it is about translating grassroots action into what it means for the bigger picture, right? The macro level. Uh, Brussels might be known to be operating in a vacuum, as there is no immediate, mass constituency here, right? There are several layers between Brussels and the voter. However, I mean, what I believe is that we see increased politicization of a range of issues, and what used to be a technocratic or a technical issue is becoming more politicized. So I think that grassroots action will have a bigger impact, or has already been having a bigger impact into what happens in town, how the town operates, how the town decides, what the balance of powers are, if you like, right? And I think being able to make that connection between the two words, grassroots to Brussels, I think that's important. I think that would be my main two takeaways from it.
It's very interesting that you speak about connecting different worlds who speak different languages, sorts of, and actually finding a language to speak to, for example, lawmakers about
Right.
complex industry issues is one of the recurring questions I ask to my guest. And because you are sort of in the middle of this communication process. What's your take on that? How do you communicate issues in a way that is understandable for the audiences? Because EURACTIV not only reaches lawmakers but also a broader audience. So maybe you also have a broader point of view on that.
I think what's important, and maybe here I borrow from my experience in politics. I think what's important is to break it down to the daily realities of people you want to address. And I remember I've been, a characteristic example. We're working in back in the day. We're advising essentially, or running workshops in a post-Soviet, country, um, and we're trying to translate the issue of corruption into simple terms. Because if you go out there and say, look, this or that government, back then we're working with the opposition, this or that government's actions translate into a loss of, I don't know, 30 billion, 40 billion, 100 billion a year, or 3 billion a year. The amount doesn't matter, right? That's something that's the voter cannot relate to. They have never seen that amount. They never had it in the bank account. They cannot easily translate that into the daily reality, right? But if you say that, look, this will mean that your village would have, a kindergarten, or the local factory might be still running, or that would translate into, you know, that amount on top of your pension yearly, which means that you'll be able to sustain your family, or your children wouldn't have to, work abroad to make a living. I think that's very important. I think you have to adjust to bring it down to the scale of the daily realities of the people you actually address, right? Um, and we see that often with the EU, the communications of the European Union institutions, right? There used to be the espresso index. I don't know if you remember that. So the European, I mean, the Commission will come out with a statistic saying that, look, the EU, running the EU costs you, the price of an espresso a day, or anything like that. But I think you have to turn that narrative into what actually the EU means to them. What's the peace dividends? What intra-community trade means for them. How much has an average salary in Greece, where I come from, increased since we joined the EU? What does it translate into their daily lives? I definitely grasp how much an espresso costs, but I think translating that into the daily life, plus giving it a positive idea of the impact, will work better. That's my feeling. So those two things. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it basically catches the essence of it. I wanted to ask you about your networking experience. From those years you worked at EURACTIV, if you would meet yourself back when you started working as a business developer, what advice would you give yourself? What are the principles of good networking and good relationship building in the EU bubble? If there's anything specific you found out to be valuable.
Sure. I think always you have to start with the one you converse with in mind, right? You have to listen to them. I think listening is important. I mean, sometimes in this time we focus too much on pitching our ideas, or what we have to to sell, or I mean, even lobbying is essentially a sales process, right? I mean, you try to persuade someone about the value of your argument, and change their position. So in that way, business development does not necessarily differ too much. I think listening is important. I think good networking is about, as you said, good relationship building, right? You have to be able to build trust. It has to be permanent, meaning not just ad hoc. It has to be continuous. It cannot be just needs based, right? I need to make a sale today. Look, I reached out to this guy I haven't spoken for 2 years, or I need to I need to engage in coalition building, and there is this think tank, who might want to join forces. They might want to join forces with me, but I haven't spoken to them since I don't know, since before COVID hit. So I think good networking is continuous. It can only be at times of crisis. It cannot only be made out of pure interest, and you shouldn't only have gain in mind, right? I think relations take time to build, and you should build relations for the sake of it. You never know when they will need you, or you will need them, or you need to, go back to them. So I think you have to be cultivating relations throughout, the business cycle. Let me put it that way, and without having any specific interest in mind. So build trust, listen to people. I think that's essential when it comes to building trust. Not just like feed them what you have to communicate, and do so as part of your daily habits. So do reach out to people, irrespective of whether you need them for something or not. I think it has to be genuine, right? Everybody's looking for authentic relations, and I think that's what we should all be doing. Is not simply based on interest, and we say that even in business development. I mean, what's I tell people, look, I'm willing to have a conversation with you, even if you tell me that you're not going to spend a penny, uh, anytime soon or in the next 3 years. I just want to, learn from you, listen to what you have to say. There is, I mean, this town runs on information essentially, right? I mean, there is an information asymmetry, or a deficit, and we strive for information. I think even talking to people simply, um, to exchange information, that's valuable, even if there's no business gain in sight or anything like that. That's my feeling. I don't know what you think about it, but uh, you know, do it as part of the daily habits. Build trust, make it permanent. Essentially, build a friendship. Um,
I I couldn't agree more, because there is this one. It was popular once on many presentations. I'm sure you've seen this. The way to explain how B2C or B2B sales or marketing should work, and I've seen many presentations where the B2C or B2B was sort of replaced by H to H, so human to human communications, to show that whatever you do, you always kind of speaking to a human, and the human exchange, the human relation building has to be a mutual exchange of values. So it has to go two-way. Otherwise, it's just short term, or it's not actually building any relationship. So yeah. I mean, I absolutely agree. But then you also have a very specific experience about building good relationships, and that is about approaching journalists. And I'm also sure, please confirm, that you also often get asked by business customers of EURACTIV how to do, how to approach the EURACTIV journalists well. What do you say when you're
sure.
asked about that?
Well, that's a very good question, and our partners ask us that, very often. I think it's essentially the same exercise, right? You have to engage in relationship building. You have to start engaging with them when you don't need them. You have to make friends at times of peace, right? Not when the crisis hits, because your crisis is not necessarily their crisis. And I think on top of that, you have to prove you're a valuable source of information and expertise. They have to see you. They have to see the added value in what you have to offer. What is news for you, what might be corporate news, is not news to them, or is not newsworthy, because they know better what their audience wants to hear. But knowing that you can be a reliable source of information, you can offer analysis, you can offer a different angle to the story. You can contribute to the story. I think that's important. Definitely, try to be in their shoes. If you would write for your audience, would your corporate press release be of any interest? How can you translate that into newsworthy content? I think when you communicate with journalists and you want to pitch something to them, right? You have to understand what is newsworthy to them and their audiences, which might not be what is newsworthy to you or again your company. Knowing how to translate that, I think that's important. There is the what we'll call also the death by press release. Journalists receive tens or hundreds of press releases a day. That will not make you stand out. This doesn't mean that you should not write press releases, right? They should be part of the content that you produce, but you have to have that relationship. I mean, you can engage with them on Twitter, for example, answer, say, look, I really like your story, what you wrote. I think I have one or two lines or one or two, sets of data that might help you improve that story. And when you do that, a few times in a row, they will start looking at you as a valuable source. So find ways essentially to offer different angles, provide value to them, provide newsworthy content. And again, that might be different from what you consider to be newsworthy. So you have to have an understanding of what the audience wants to hear about. So knowing your audience, essentially the Brussels audience, is very important. And then engage with them again throughout the policy cycle. Don't do it when you need it. Oh, suddenly, we have this policy issue and we need to communicate it. Can you help us do that? A journalist will not be necessarily able to do that.
And I also think that what sometimes happens, especially for people who don't have much experience in talking to media, is that they are sort of afraid to show that they actually represent their own interests, that they want to present what's best for their business, what's best for their industry, and they're trying to sort of go around and build up a narrative that is not true. And especially in industry media, what I think people should know is that journalists want to hear the industry perspective. They actually prefer to hear an honest opinion of a business that something is not working or is working well or should be changed or whatever the issue is, rather than just having a layered package of narratives that try to hide the real opinion or the real issue.
No, I mean, I totally agree with you. And I think, you might think, look, you want to communicate that company Y, decided to do this or that investment, right? That in itself might not be necessarily something that journalists is interested in. But if you put it a different way, company Y decides to launch such investment, which goes against the Commission's planning for the next 5 years. That's news, right? Or challenges, policymakers' thinking when it comes to, what we should invest, where we should invest. What is critical investment? What is critical infrastructure? What is green? What is not? I think that is far more newsworthy than simply putting the announcement out there. There are obviously times where you should do just that, and there are means and tools to do so, and there's value in it. But again, we're talking here about engaging with journalists, right? So I think if you put that into the context of the bubble and the policymaking process that we operate in, I think that's far more newsworthy to journalists and the audience as well.
If you would look at the offer of EURACTIV from the perspective of a comms person, there are a number of different tools one can use for their policy communications, for their campaign. events, media outreach, what would be your favorite tool? What would you choose as the most efficient tool? What is, or maybe should the question be, what is the best seller that you have to offer that just works best in maybe the shortest period of time, or maybe in getting the best possible reach?
Right. I think here that doesn't only apply to EURACTIV, obviously, right? Same as other organizations will offer a wide range of tools. I think it largely depends on what your goal is, and we tailor, essentially we build a strategy here, right? And we tailor tools to what your aim is. Again, the same applies to other organizations as well. It's definitely not a one size fits all. When we approach a partner and help them plug in tools into their campaign, and help them achieve their goals. My colleagues and I, again, and all media professionals and comms professionals, try to strategize around goals. Now, there are some, maybe tools that are more, let's say, popular than others. That's definitely the case with events. But we see value in all tools that EURACTIV offers, again, based on the situation. But not trying to avoid your question here, but I think tools is a key part of our offer.
And how do you?
Sorry,
how often?
Events, right? Events is a key part of our offer.
We'll speak about events, doing events well in a moment. But going back to actually using these tools and having what you already mentioned before, this long-term approach of building relationship. How often do you see that when you speak to clients? Is it a common thing to have a long-term relationship, a long-term approach to planning campaigns, or is more often the case that people have a short-term approach? They want just to get a campaign done and then just see what can be done next. What's your experience?
I think we see everything, right? We see it's a mixed bag. I believe here that the best strategy is that comes from those partners that employ both, essentially, right? They do long-term engagement, and at the same time, when there are policy specific or dossier specific issues they want to address, they address that heads on. But I think a strategy that combines both is the best way to go forward. But again, it's understandable. We see all sorts of different strategies, and definitely we try to help in every situation, right? Again, it depends on many different elements, and here I'm not only referring to budgets, right? There is a wide range of things you can do in this town without spending much or without spending anything at all, right? I mean, engaging with journalists doesn't cost you anything. It's simply part of your strategy. But I think it has to do, the rotation of personnel, goals changing. You might need to address a short-term need just because you couldn't predict it. So I don't think short-term reactions are necessarily, wrong. No, definitely not. You might be forced by circumstances to do so, but I think a strategy that combines both will work better.
It's interesting that you say this, because you mentioned before that you don't miss active politics that much, because it has become so much about crisis management. And my experience with political communication and policy comms in Brussels has been also that in the recent, let's say, 10 years, it's become much more dynamic, and there's a lot. Maybe not crisis management, but real-time activity needed, rather than this long-term planning. So it's interesting to hear that you have a similar experience.
Well, I think it's the same with the electoral cycle, right? I mean, if you engage with voters 6 months before the elections every 4 years, they definitely might want to hear from you, and you might have something to say. But I think they will be far more receptive if you're there almost on a permanent basis, right? You are a politics nut yourself. I mean, we go into permanent campaigning. I mean, that's a concept that exists there for a reason. So you need to keep engaging throughout. That you might find a more eager ear, and that applies also to stakeholder engagement. So I think you should be doing that as part of your strategy. Again, if you're forced by circumstances to do short-term engagement, that's totally understandable, and there are many solutions you could employ, but I think, again, a combination of both of those two elements will work best.
I don't know if you remember, we had a coffee at Place Luxembourg somewhere around 2020 when
Right.
we were sort of feeling in the middle of the COVID crisis. And I remember that we discussed the state of the events industry in the bubble back then. Obviously, EURACTIV has seen a huge decline in in-person events in that year, like everyone. And I remember us discussing how that will turn out long term. Will hybrid or Zoom events become the new standard? I don't think they have. What is the new standard right now? Once we are out of COVID and in-person events are back, but has something changed because of this experience we all had?
I think, I mean, we were all forced to move to a virtual environment, and then gradually, as you mentioned, to a hybrid environment, and then to a mixed environment now, right? I mean, you have anything from fully virtual to hybrid to fully in-person events. So I think now we see the whole range. Um, what we saw and how the health crisis has impacted events is, I believe, we have all discovered some of the benefits of the advantages of the virtual world that we try to translate and incorporate into the hybrid world now. But I think some of the added benefits are here to stay. Obviously, there might have been a fatigue, but there are elements that we can definitely maintain and keep, and that's what we have been doing. And it's not just us; it's every organization. Um, Obviously, the long term effects of having, for example, an event recording online, prolonging, its life. I think that's important. Having audiences tuning in from even within the bubble, or even elsewhere, or wider audience you can reach through the online element of an event. I think that's important, and it far extends the reach of an event. Um, those are elements, I think, or even having speakers from abroad who wouldn't necessarily make the trip to Brussels just to speak. Um, I'm not saying that virtual events, fully addressed the needs and the reasoning behind having an event in Brussels, but there are positive elements there that we have kept, and I think they're here to stay. That's my feeling. What do you think?
I think the best approach is to take advantage of both the event on site
Sure.
with real people coming. I remember when COVID kicked in, I had conversations with some of my clients who I was trying to convince to maybe not kill events at all for the remaining time of the year, but maybe try to do something online. And actually, two of my clients said, no, we only are interested in in-person events because one of the most important parts of the event is the networking after the panel debate, after the conference, where you can actually meet a lawmaker over a coffee and discuss in an environment that is worth much more than, I mean, you can't have that on a Zoom call. So there are, like you said, there are pros and cons, but now that we have all this experience and we know that there are advantages of doing things online, I would say that hybrid events are the best solution for combining the possible reach, because then you have just bigger opportunities to reach people and to also have audiences. You can have a guest from whatever you want with this tool. So on the other hand, what is also important, it makes the event more expensive if you do it in a hybrid mode. If you add live streaming, that's also something to consider.
Sure.
Maybe not if you are doing one event per year, but some organizations in Brussels do a lot of events, and if you turn your typical debate that was just a small in-person event to a live streamed event, or to an event with a guest speaker, which requires a bit more technical support than just a live streaming, that in the long term just makes the needed budget to go up. And
sure. Yeah, we definitely see that, and I agree with you. As I said as well, I mean, combining the best of both worlds is I think is the way forward, and that's mostly hybrid events. But again, there are, as you said, costs associated with it. I tend to believe that the market is aware of that now. We saw at the very beginning many organizations try to do it themselves. I mean, I think now I think there is this understanding that it takes a certain degree of expertise, starting from the technical infrastructure needed, again as well the technical expertise needed to run a good hybrid event. Good broadcast moderation, which might different from in-person only moderation. So are there all these elements that make hybrid events more demanding, if I may, and thus they command higher rate, or that there is a higher cost associated with it. But I think they bring the best of both worlds.
So, with so many events happening in Brussels every week, and especially if it's Parliament week, then I remember having a situation where we were doing a small debate for a client. Don't remember the topic, but I remember that it was last year, that there were 3 events happening in the same week, exactly on the same topic, and it was quite difficult to even get the right speakers because they were already booked, and then not to mention to promote the event. So my question to you is, how do you make your event stand out with so much competition actually going on? I think people from outside the bubble would be surprised how much competition there is sometimes on a specific topic.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the landscape, the events landscape is very competitive. The sector is very dynamic. There have been many partnerships as of recent. I mean, we see events organizers partnering with media. It's a very dynamic market. I think the EURACTIV model is quite specific. We create turnkey policy events, meaning we don't do PR events or anything like that. We try to create policy value. I think that's key here. What does that mean? It means that we want to take a policy debate forward every single time. And again, here that translates into putting together a balanced panel. I think panels are important. The panel lineup is important. It's not simply about inviting frontline politicians. That helps, but what we have seen, what we observe is that policy level officials sometimes are in better possession of the details, right? So knowing what your model is, having a specific direction you want to take that event, and what that is, you want to again move the policy debate forward. It's not a PR event. Is not about a single voice being heard. I think having a multitude of voices is important. Here, we're trying to put together balanced panels with representatives from essentially the three stakeholder groups that are here active in Brussels. That is policymakers, again, elected or appointed officials, industry, and also civil society, academia, the think tank world. Maybe the best way to put it is that there should be disagreement, right? A panel that's where all speakers agree will not make for a good panel. You should have all legitimate voices represented. I think that's key. Also, I think audience engagement is important, and here we'll go back to the permanent campaigning concept. We're a media, so we have the advantage of being able to interact with audiences on a daily basis, right? Through our coverage, as newsletters, social media, events. So when you receive an event invitation, that does not come out of the blue. It is an extension of what we already do, what we do daily. It completes the cycle in a sense. So engagement cannot stop, should not stop, and must continue in any form possible. But again, I believe having technical level balanced panel, policy level balanced panel is important. You wouldn't like to go to an event where you hear what you already know, or every voice on that panel repeats the same argument. I think having all those different voices, all those different sides of the debate sit together, I think that's important.
You mentioned the holy grail of events, audience engagement, and especially with having audiences in person at the event venue and online, there are many ways to approach this. There are a number of software solutions that are popular. You could mention Slido, for example, which is quite a common thing to see on events in Brussels. What have you found to be the most efficient approach to actually, having an audience that enjoys being part of the event, but also is a useful tool to make the event more efficient for the organizers?
I mean, again, a good panel is the start, the absolute necessary element. I think what we have understood is that an event is not defined by a single moment in time. So it's not that 90 minutes or I don't know 75 minutes exercise, right? You have to give events some continuity and make events outlast that live 90 minutes again duration. I think here post-event access is important, so that you can engage more audiences, a larger audience than the live one. I think that's definitely a key element. Post-event access. I mean, we do that through editorial coverage, but also offering access to event recordings online post-event. But also, having an audio format of the event, so a podcast version of the event. I think that diversifies a bit, the way that the audience can engage with the content that's created out of an event. I guess that would be my idea. As you said, we do live engagement through Slido. But again, the event being part of a continuous longer process, I think that's important for audiences to engage better. I mean, for us, it's an extension of what we do on a daily basis. So it's essentially an extension of our coverage, right? Is again part of this aim to move the policy debate forward, to enhance policy discussions. So if you capture that audience, or you take them with you on that journey that an event is part of, I think it's much easier to bring or create value through an event.
I just checked that the number of articles on the EURACTIV website mentioning artificial intelligence is more than 1,200 articles. I don't know how relevant that search is. Maybe some articles just have a keyword, but still, it's an impressive number. And I would expect that since EURACTIV writes so much about artificial intelligence, that the team also has discovered some ways to use it for their own good. So, yeah, here's the question: how have you already tried boosting your work with the help of AI? And if yes, what has worked out for you? And what not?
Okay, very good. I mean, obviously, there is a lot of coverage out there because, there is the AI Act, there is the European AI strategy, which is, issues that, those are issues that our team, editorial team covers, right? There's interest in AI policy development, that's for sure. Now, okay, when it comes, maybe I wouldn't be too specific about EURACTIV strategy. Maybe I'll focus on the wider media industry. I think that certain tasks you can automate, right? Whether it is text to speech or speech to text. I mean, I don't know, creating a transcript, right? A journalist might find very useful. They go, they have an interview, or they go to a press conference. They record that, and then that's automatically translated into a transcript. And there are definitely not necessarily AI solutions, but tech solutions that help with that, and AI might enhance this. I think also translation is another area where AI can help. So publishing in several languages, right? Now, if you ask me, will this be a substitute to good journalism? I don't believe so. I mean, technology is a tool, and we will definitely have better tools, and we've been testing some. There are better analytical tools. They help us synthesize information, but I don't know. Maybe AI, for example, could help in identify disinformation patterns, right? This is something we can positively use AI as an industry for. But again, I don't believe good journalism, especially, let me put that way, bubble journalism, like policy analysis, can be easily substituted. Again, it's about trust, relations, political acumen. I think those will remain important. I think one thing, though, that as an industry we have to definitely address is transparency. So the user, the reader, expects us to tell them, has this article been generated with the help of AI? Am I reading the byline of someone, or is that a piece of content that has been produced by AI? I think stating who the author is very important. So transparency, I think, especially when it comes to AI, will be a key element for the media industry.
I actually, and this might also be true for the broader media industry, but representing the consulting and agency marketing communication services industry, my view on the next effect of AI being a big help in a lot of tasks is that soon the clients will discover that we are able to deliver quality services faster than before.
Sure.
Because we use all those tools that just help us do the translations, the summaries, the whatever AI will help us in. So the expectations will be higher. The expectations will be to get things done faster and better. And that will not
Absolutely,
mean
yeah.
less work. That will just mean more work for everyone. And that's my approach. That's that's
Sure.
actually my fear. What AI will do to us. We're excited now because obviously, for example, when I want to write a summary of our interview for the website, I will ask AI to give me the key points based on the transcript. And it's great.
Right.
I can just then fine tune it and make a great article that would take maybe an hour in 20 minutes, right?
Sure.
But from the business perspective, that actually may prove to be quite a challenge.
Sure, no, absolutely. And I mean, we've been again experimenting and using and putting AI tools to good use. For example, when it comes to policy monitoring, we offer a solution called EA, so EURACTIV intelligence, that uses AI to monitor policymaking activity. So I do believe definitely it will help us go through information faster and organize information better. But as you said, there should be or there will be a need to be a human filter, especially for critical actions.
Andrianos, I try to have a last question in this interview, always to be more about the personal things. And
Okay.
Since you represent the media industry, which means that probably one of the more important parts of your job is, being on top of the news, knowing who does what, who to talk to. I assume there is the temptation to always be connected, to always be online, not to lose touch of the most important things happening in the EU bubble. So the question is, how do you make sure that you keep a balance in this? How do you disconnect? Either is it just what's your approach to that?
Sure. I mean, okay, that's a very good question, but I think we all as professionals, struggle. We struggle with this. But before I get into this, I had maybe one last point that came to my mind that I think is important since we discussed events. I think events is usually, I mean, event organization can also be the message, right? We see events as a process, but an event can be the message, and the message out there is that as an organization, I'm willing to support an event that will have a different view from mine, because I want to be positioned as part of the solution. I want to move a policy debate forward, and I think that's something that we see more and more. I mean, the organizing or supporting an event sends the message out there that I want to be part of the solution, and facilitate such a discussion. So I will invite the audience and everybody to think of events as messages in themselves, rather than simply a means to a message or a means to a goal, right? But now back to your, I think, more interesting question, and more critical for all of us. I think media is about, as you say, it's a lot about breaking news. Is about minute by minute development, but at the same time, that there is a danger that you might be just following the cycle endlessly, right? Without giving yourself any time to pause. Um, in in a way, that is like the stock exchange. So if you look at the daily change, that my move here or there, there might be incremental change on a daily basis, right? But if you look what has happened over a year, there might be one or two or three events that uh, prove to be detrimental or crucial, right? I think what is important, and the same applies to the news cycle. I think what is important is to build an analytical framework that you can easily feed information into, and get results. So, for example, if the political situation in a country, you can feed into that every single development without spending too much time on this, and understand how that might reflect in the long term. So I think for us professionals, it's important to build those general frameworks that we put information into, so we can understand what is happening without spending too much time on reading the necessarily the details. I mean, you cannot be on top of everything. Now, in my case, I think I tend to follow news less and follow industry news more. So I think that's more important to what I do on a day-to-day basis. But then at the same time, trying to retain the overall understanding of what is going on politically or policy wise. Now, how many news will there be in a day that will be life changing? I think that's the question you have to we all have to ask ourselves, right? Um, I understand this might not be the case when you follow a specific file, and there is a vote coming up, right? I understand there might be exceptional periods, but again, how many critical events happen on a single day? I think not many. So I think reading headlines, reading again, yeah, maybe headlines, putting that into the framework you already have in your mind to try to analyze the impacts without necessarily reading everything is necessary. And I think there is a time that you have to switch off. I mean, I tend to do that, in the weekends and late evenings.
Does it mean?
Unless
I'm
there's,
sorry. I want to understand specifically.
sure,
Does this mean that you actually put your phone away and don't look at
yeah, I
it
do put
for a
my phone
couple of
away.
hours?
Yeah,
Okay.
at least a couple of hours, even more, right? Um, so yeah, I think there is you have to set a limit. Again, I believe that if there is anything life changing that will happen 9 o'clock in the evening, someone will call you and tell you about it. I mean, if there's a nuclear attack, probably
You'll
your
probably
family
see it.
yeah, you probably see it, or a family member of yours will call you, right? I think
Yeah.
anything else can wait. Essentially, that's my feeling. Otherwise, you're going to be dragged into it without necessarily having any immediate benefits
Yeah.
that comes out of it. I mean, obviously, we want to supply up-to-date information, and the life of a journalist might be different than mine. That's for sure. That is something I understand, but again, that is a choice. I think in my line of business, I think some things can wait. That's my feeling, especially when it comes to family or other priorities, friends, or any other priorities. Each one of us might set, right? So yeah, I do try to disengage after work and especially the weekends. I think it is important because some of the work we do might be critical to some partners, right? So I do check my phone every now and then, and I will reply out of hours if that's your question. But I'll try to limit this to what I consider to be truly critical.
I think what is the key takeaway from what you said is just to have a framework that allows you to disconnect but still keep things under control.
Yes, no, absolutely, absolutely.
Andrianos, thank you very much for all your time today and these valuable insights. I enjoyed speaking with you, and I'm sure our audience also enjoyed viewing and listening to our conversation. So thank you very much, and thank you everyone who listened to us today.
Many thanks, Chris. Thanks very much for having me, and thank you to your audience as well. And congrats on the initiative. And yeah, we're looking for more content.
Absolutely. It's coming soon. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.